The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Vixens Who Rule. Listen, by looking at your computer screen, this absolutely is 100% Vixen. But Shelly Martinez, you are much, much more than a Vixen, aren't you? As a matter of fact, you are a Vixen. You are a beautiful young lady. You have a gorgeous body. But me knowing you, I think Vixen's on the bottom of your list. There are a lot of other things that you do that I think are more important than Vixen. But you don't mind being on Vixens Who Rule, do you?
Hell no, because you know what? I'll always be a Vixen at heart.
Shelly, I got to tell you, I'm going to give everybody a little backstory, and Shelly, listen, I got to be honest with you. I'm so thrilled that I have you on the show because you've been ducking me for months.
Oh,
even as of yesterday, you were ducking me. I finally have you, but I have to tell you, since I have you, I'm not wasting any time talking about wrestling. Is that cool?
We can talk about whatever you want. I always tell people I'm like a Freemason. I don't say anything unless I'm asked. So, I'll talk about anything.
Okay, because I want to talk about Shelly Martinez.
All right.
Because I got to tell you, Shelly, and this is no joke. This is the absolute truth, and I know you remember this. We worked together at TNA, and, Shelly, I always had to deal with, 30, 40 people, every day. I never got to spend the time, one-on-one time with people. I just never got to. Somehow, some way, you and I sat together on a plane ride. And I got to tell you, I had one of the most interesting talks with you that I've ever had with anybody. And the thing that stood out to me is, listen, and I think you kind of feel the same way, I love people that are different. I love people that are unique. I love people that stand out. So we had that great conversation on the plane. Fast forward many years later, I went to L.A. about 6 months ago. We had a little dinner, and again, I got to sit next to you and listen to the words of Shelly Martinez, which intrigued me even more. Shelly, can you just tell everybody out there too, before I go any further? Can you just tell them who picked up the dinner for everybody?
You did actually.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay,
Thank you. But at the Rainbow in Hollywood.
Yeah, what was the Rainbow Room? That was a big deal. For me, that was a big deal. For you, you must go there all the time.
Well, I used to run around there a lot when I was younger, not so much now. So it was a treat for me because I always feel like any night at the Rainbow is a good night because I just don't go there. I used to go there probably 3 or 4 times a week. And now I hardly ever go. I just live in a different part of town.
Shelly, can you move over this way a little bit? Because there's a little picture of me, and I don't want to cut you off at all. That's perfect. Hey, Shelly, give people a little history, because you're an L.A. girl, through and through. But the Rainbow Room used to be a really big deal back in the day. Not so much now, right?
Well, it's very nostalgic now. So, people do still go there. It is very packed. But back in the 80s when the Sunset Strip was taking over with the whole Guns N' Roses and, that whole scene, Motley Crue, that whole genre, it was Sunset Strip was the thing. I mean, listen to the songs. They even say it in there all the time. And the Rainbow, I believe the owners of the Rainbow also own the Roxy. So that's another historic music, if you're into music, place here in California or in Hollywood. So that was the thing to do, was to go to those places. And hold on one second. My dog is going crazy.
Are you going to blow me off and never come back? Are you not going to come back? Oh man,
I have a diabetic dog, Ethel Mertz, okay, and her little doggy pad's right there, and she needs to pee, and she was being a good girl, and she was scratching at the door, and usually she just does one scratch, but she did a whole bunch of scratches. She's like, hello. And by the way, a little side note, my dogs run the dog whisperer, so they're kind of a big deal too.
We got a lot to talk about, but I want to talk about this first. How many people do you think know who Ethel Mertz is? I know who Ethel Mertz is.
Not many people. Now I had to blow you off to close the door because we have coyotes here. So hold on.
There she goes again. See, I knew this exactly what it was going to be with Shelly Martinez. She can't sit in one spot.
That's not true. I have to take care of my dog.
Yeah.
Ethel comes first. Okay, so
now are you a huge Lucy mark?
I sure am. I have been such a fan of Lucille Ball and I Love Lucy since I was a little girl. And what's interesting, kind of tying it in with some wrestling, I remember there was a time when I was in OVW, and I, for the record, love Paul Heyman, but there was a time we were butting heads a little bit. So I was kind of, just as a relief when he was walking to make everyone laugh, I would walk behind him and like mimic his walk. And I had like my little ponytail going side to side. And when he would turn around, I would stop. And then he'd walk again. And when I was telling one of my friends who has nothing to do with wrestling that, is a guy here in Hollywood, whatever, I was telling him that story. And then he was like, oh my gosh, it's like you were Lucille Ball. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is something totally that Lucille Ball or Lucy would be doing. And so it was really interesting that my whole life I've always gravitated towards that television show, always found Lucille Ball's delivery and everything she did so mesmerizing. And then getting older and understanding how life works, especially being a woman and a woman in a man's world, to be honest, especially with her, little did I know as a little girl that there was so much behind all of that. Mm-hmm. But as I got older, I got to peel the onion behind that whole thing. And so fast forward to my dogs. Yes, my dogs are Fred and Ethel Mertz.
So I have to ask you this because I'm afraid of this. And I'm going to tell you straight up, I have ADD. So like I'm all over the place in interviews. I have a feeling you got a little ADD too. I think people are going to have to take an aspirin after this interview.
Oh, that's not true.
But
if I need to slow down, that's
no.
fine.
But see, that's the good thing. No, Shelly, the ADD thing. I'll be honest with you, and the conversations I have with you. I think that's a good thing because what I notice with you is every time we've had two good conversations, but your mind goes a mile a minute. And I tend to think, are you always that way? Are you the type of person that like you're just always thinking and you can't shut it off?
Here's what it is. Okay, for example, right now we were talking and you asked me if I was a Lucy mark, and it went from Ethel because she had to pee and you were trying to call me out saying I'm ducking you. So I went on this whole thing about Lucy, and I know a lot of people on this that are watching this are probably fans of wrestling, being that this is your show and people who typically know me is from wrestling. So I thought it'd be really cool to kind of tie in this thing with Lucy and my dog because it became a disruptance to wrestling. And I thought, oh my gosh, I do have a story that's relevant. And as I was sharing it, maybe I was speaking a little fast because I put myself in that moment with that conversation with my friend. And because I haven't really thought of that story in a while, it made me excited thinking, man, that's pretty cool because this is true. And here I am talking from a place where my sister and I never, long story short, thought we could live in this neighborhood that we do. And I'm talking to you on your thing.
Very
and so
deep.
Then I thought, and then I brought it
Very
back
deep.
to say, so at the end of the day, yes, I am a huge Lucy fan. My dogs are Fred and Ethel. So I brought it back. I feel someone with ADD, they lose track and they go different rabbit holes. Whereas me, maybe I'm a couple of skips ahead, but it's because I'm tying something together because I'm conversating with you. So it's like there's a lot of ways that I could draw you, my friend, who cares about who's watching right now, into what I'm saying and making it all relevant. But then I'm like, oh, yeah, we're doing an interview. So let me throw out some wrestling for these people,
Shelly,
too.
Everything with you, this is what I love about you. Everything is very deep. Everything has a reason. Everything has a meaning. This is what Shelly, can I ask you a personal question, Shelly? Because, I was reading your bio and there's something I want to hit on. But I got to ask you a personal question. And I think you're pretty open. You're pretty open to answering questions, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, let's get back. My ADD's kicking in. We went from the Rainbow Room to the dog to Lucy. Now I'm going back to the Rainbow Room. Okay, when we spent the night together at the Rainbow Room, and listen, let's make it clear to everybody, Shelly, it wasn't a romantic episode. There were a bunch of us because I'm going to ADD again because supposedly there's this little wrestling club in LA that they shunned you and you were on the outside looking in. I was very upset with this. So that was a big part of the conversation that night. But I got to go back to the Rainbow Room. Now, Shelly, listen to me. You kept going outside every couple of minutes, and
Yes.
you were smoking a pipe
I sure was.
outside.
Yes.
Is it too much for me to ask what was in the pipe?
Well, it was cannabis. People, if they know me, they know that that's what I do.
And you're a big advocate. Hey, Shelly, I got to ask you this. I'm in Colorado, and there are dispensaries like 7-Elevens here. I mean, in California, of all places, how can marijuana not be legalized?
It's politics. Long story short, it's just all politics. And at the end of the day, the medical marijuana industry is going to create a ton of money. So while those stupid politics are getting worked out, eventually it's like prohibition. Okay, once prohibition happened, it took a while before now huge sporting events have Budweiser and all this and this. And people forget that because nobody that was around during prohibition really are around now. So who can, if there are, they're really old. So,
Now, Shelly, but from what I read about you, your cause is really the medical marijuana side. It's not, okay, I'm smoking pot because I'm cool and I want to get high. You're really an advocate of medical marijuana. Is that because at some point you needed it for something?
Well, here's the thing. Long story short, my family, there's gang members and things like that. So it's a really crazy life. And I associated marijuana with the things that I was exposed to as a little girl. So I always thought it was bad news. And I used to even tell people all the time, I never smoked a marijuana cigarette a day in my life. I was that girl. And when I was in WWE, it was really interesting because here I was living my childhood dream, but where my mental health was, I don't know, man. I was really going through a lot, and it was almost one of those things where I would often tell myself, what's just wrong? I would pray, like, God, just tell me what I need to fix, and I'm down to fix it. Like, I'm down. I just didn't know what it was. So then I go on the road, and I had this little stint with somas, which are muscle relaxers, and that's when I would quote when my friends were worried about me. And for me, when I was taking them, when I was first exposed to them, I had a back thing. I got to prescribe them. But when I saw how it numbed me, like I honestly would go to training because I was under contract at the time. So I'd go to training. After training was over, I'd come home. And the whole thing with somas is you eat carbs or sugar. So I'd have carb or sugar. I'd have the soma. I'd pass out. I'd wake up. I'd take another soma, eat a carb or sugar, pass out. And here I am, like contracted with WWE. And I was just such in a weird place. So then I realized I had a problem because a boyfriend of mine had kind of pointed out to me some things. And at the time I wasn't about it. And then, I don't know, I just saw these pictures of me and I don't know, just this whole thing. It was bad. I accidentally overdosed for a second. So that's when I realized, okay, there is a problem here. So when I realized that, I just stopped cold turkey. So then I go on the road. And mind you, I had a boob job on Thursday. And then that Thursday. And then I think that Saturday I went and flew somewhere. So, and then I'm thinking I can't take, these pills, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't know RVD yet. I just knew him from Hi Bye. And for some reason at that time when we were doing ECW, we weren't doing our house shows with SmackDown yet. So they had us do these crazy drives. It'd be like hundreds of miles without flying us. So the ECW guys, that's what we do. And so I bring that up just because there's a lot of miles to cover, but for some reason I just kept bumping into RVD. He was the only one, and he had no idea where I stood on it or anything like that. And he would just say, not only does cannabis help you, with pain management, but it's also good for the environment. And like he would just tell me these things, and I'm like, well, this is weird. So I went home and I Googled it, and I was like, damn it if RVD's not right. And a lot of my friends were total potheads. Even when I was in high school, people thought I definitely medicated because I hung out with the potheads. I just would say it's not my thing. So I was with my buddies, and I was the one that would pass it, and I just looked at it, and I thought about all the stuff that Rob had told me. And I said, and I tried it. And it's so funny because my friends, it was like a record scratching moment. There was like, oh, wait, what's going on here? And I remember for the first time I felt like high school Shelly. And I used to think that people always wanted to go back to the good old days because, you know, life happens, beats you up a little bit. It's not the same. Ignorance is bliss. And it really bothered me. And that's when I realized my whole little problem I was having when I was just like, what is wrong with me, is I wasn't feeling myself, because things did happen in life. But I didn't even realize I was depressed. I had to take my sister to say, sounds like you have depression, Shelly. I was like, I do? Really? And then when I first took that hit and I got medicated, I was just like, I feel like high school Shelly. Maybe there's something to this. So then I would continue to be with my friends, whatever.
Well, Shelly, let me interrupt you. When you say I felt like high school Shelly, what does that mean? Give me a feeling with how you felt.
What high school Shelly was, is pretty much who I am today, but just a younger version. You know, I would go to school with my little platform shoes and my little outfits, but I had my Bible in my purse, and I would just be like, people would say, what is it about you? There's something about you that's so, like, it's not just because you're pretty. And I'd say, honestly, it's just the love of God. And like at lunchtime, I would meet, and there would be like prayer groups, and like twice a week we'd meet and have lunch together. So my spiritual growth, and connection, even though there was a lot of awful things going on in my household, like my father was a drug addict and pedophile, and you know, when I grew up, when I was a little girl, I was in brothels and things like that, so child pornography. So I didn't realize all that, and when I started medicating, all of a sudden I was having repressed memories come back, and I thought that was really interesting. And my sister and I are really close, and I would start to, you know, even to this day, we'll open up about things. And because we had the same upbringing, we can fill in each other's blanks, and that just never happened. And I feel that with other medications that are out there for people who have depression or anything like that, anxiety, the things that I've always battled with that I thought were normal, because I always had panic attacks, like my whole life. I thought it was normal. I thought it was normal to wake up and feel like you have to throw up. Like I just thought it was. And when I started talking about it, that's when I realized it wasn't. And then that was around the time where cannabis entered my life. And I saw that, oh my gosh, I can be relieved of this stuff. And the most profound thing I feel was these suppressed memories. There was even one, I suppressed it twice in my life, because when I kind of blew the whistle on one of the predators in my family, the whole family came after me. Why are you saying this? And I repressed it, and I forgot both things happened until I started medicating, and it helped me not only just physically as a wrestler, and that's why I really wish WWE, because I know when I was there, they did allow that you could, you know, use cannabis. I wish they would allow it now, and I understand because it's you know, it's a different company now, blah, blah, blah. But I want to throw out there, I always tell my sister, if I were to be able to have a chance to talk to Vince McMahon, I would tell him, like, you should offer something that they have to sign a contract saying you cannot get, like, shown anywhere, no, you know, social media, anything. It has to be pretty much a private thing that you do, and you won't get in trouble. Or if you do abuse this, that's when you get fined. That's when you can get fired. Because I feel as a wrestler, not only physically, but the mental stress and what happens to your mental health, being on the road, and it's really beneficial. And I've known people who maybe have done other things aside from my own experiences, that when they do medicate, there's just such a positive outcome, but they don't medicate because at that time, either they're with the company or now they're with the company, and they just are feeling like they're losing themselves because they can't have that herbal natural medication that helps balance them out, whatever they got going on. So that's the big old cannabis speech. And that's why I'm so passionate, because it's more like you said than just getting high on, because I was never for that.
Shelly, I relate to this very much, and I want to tell you something that I dealt with, because I want to see what kind of advice you'd give me, because I'm not, listen, I think you're a very intelligent girl, and especially when it comes to this. Let me tell you something, okay? When I was in college, you know, I always say college was the greatest years of my life, young. I was a part of a fraternity. I was away from home, the whole 9 yards. Okay. When I was in college, I used to smoke the cannabis, as you call it. But Shelly, let me tell you why I did it. To be honest with you, I did it because it put me to sleep like that. I mean, it relaxed me, and I was out. So, when I knew I had a, test the next day, whatever the case may be, and I needed to sleep, boom, it knocked me out. It relaxed me. It knocked me out. But I got to tell you something, Shelly. Here's the interesting thing now. Now, I got married at 22 years old. All of a sudden, my life became filled with anxiety and stress and depression. I was not ready to take on all the responsibilities of a wife, a house, a full-time job all at once. I wasn't ready for that, right? So what happened was, during that time, one time I smoked marijuana. This is outside of college. One time when I was going through that, I got to tell you, Shelly, I don't know if it was the combination of my stress or what I was going through, but I felt like I was starting to freak out. It scared the hell out of me. There wasn't that relaxing, there wasn't that. There was freaking out, panic, what is wrong with me? I mean, it was that kind of experience. To make a long story short, here's where I'm going with you, okay? Because maybe you could recommend something to me. Shelly, my whole life I've dealt with deep depression. I mean, I really have, and I go in and out of it, in and out of it, in and out of it. Now, listen, you've said this, and you'll appreciate this. Because of what I've seen in the wrestling business, I won't get medicated with any prescription drugs, period. And I know darn well if I go to the doctor and he's going to confirm I have depression, he's going to say, take this, take that. I don't go down that road. So, basically I have to overcome it myself. And, you used, God as a reference. And a lot of times it is God that helps me get through it, right? But, Shelly, I got to tell you something. Pot all of a sudden becomes legal here in Colorado. So I'm like, you know what? I need to relax. I need to get out of this depression. I need to just forget everything. It's not like I'm doing anything legal here anymore. I can go out and get it, right? So what happened was I went out and got it, smoked it again on my own, and I had that same exact feeling I had the last time I took it. Do you so now here I am again. I struggle with the depression and okay, what do I do? Do you think it affected me that way because of stress, and because you mentioned you went through panic attacks and things like that? Because here I'm thinking, okay, it's going to relax me. It's going to calm me down. It did the total opposite. Do you know enough about it to kind of know what happened?
Well, first of all, are you aware if you had indica or sativa?
I had grape ape.
Okay. Different strains have different names, and that's where the cutesiness comes, like grape ape. But come on, Fred. But there's 3 different kinds of strains you can get. It's called indica, which typically is a muscle relaxant, the one that's going to make you relax. Like you were saying, when you were in college, it helped you with your insomnia, relax you, put you to anxiety. Right. That's what that is. Hold on. My phone's going to die, so let me just plug this in so I don't lose you. And then a sativa is something that typically people would take for mental alertness, for that depression. And that's something that's more of, I guess, for lack of a better term, is an upper. Whereas, hold on, I gotta plug this in. Whereas the indica is considered a quote unquote down, I guess you'd say. And then there's hybrids, which are the blends of the two, so that you get kind of the best of both worlds and their components. Also, so that could be a thing. And also, I feel, and this is just my opinion, who am I, right? I feel, based on my own experiences and my sister's experiences, and her and I relating to each other and sharing and sometimes having it at the same time, I feel when you medicate, there's something that happens that whether it's the people you're with and it's an openness. So I found that I've had kind of weird vibes, anxiety times, but more than that, I feel that sometimes when we got so much going on, and maybe more, I think a little bit of it in a different way than most, I guess you would say. You can have these freak out moments because I feel that whatever chemically happens to everyone's individual brain when that medication goes into it and it goes into the body, it makes everything seem really real and quick. And all of a sudden, that can be a little overwhelming. A prime example, I'm going to put myself on blast, and hopefully this helps you. But here I am, Miss Pothead USA, right? But I know what you're talking about. I've had those moments. And for me, in a weird way, I've grown to like them. But when I'm in them, it's very overwhelming. And there's times where I've almost felt like, oh my gosh, am I going to die? Okay, no, it's just cannabis. And I think a lot of people wouldn't think that I still go through that sometimes. And when I do go through that, usually there's just so much going on. And in my life, just being real, a lot of spiritual battles going on. And everything becomes so real, it becomes a little intense. And I have a website, and it has nothing to do with wrestling. It's just my modeling site. And it's a membership site, but I don't have any nudity or topless, and it's just really, it's sexy, but so I have to come up with different ways to keep the member feeling like it's worth being a member, especially because I'm not showing all that. So I tried out doing these Skype chats, and one day somebody was like, hey, would you do a Skype chat in a bikini? And I thought, well, what's it to me? I'm in a bikini, whatever. And then it kind of, when I was when I was doing these chats with a couple guys in particular that continued to get them. So I was like, oh, awesome. This is awesome. Okay, great way to make money. But then it became this I became like a webcam girl almost. And then it put me in a dark place. And it's just like, well, where do I go from here? And I remember one time I got really medicated and I just looked at the screen and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is me right now. This is me. And it was real easy before I got medicated to kind of get lost in, it's whatever. It's not a big deal. It's not like I'm showing anything. I'm just in a bikini talking to myself. But really, I was tricking myself, and there was so much going on to where, for me, and no judgment, some people do that, and that is awesome. But for me, especially with the background I just told you of when I grew up and the things that I was exposed to, puts me in a very dark place. But it was almost like I was tricking myself. And at that time, I was, just having to ration my medication, and I, to be honest, was drinking more. So I wasn't thinking as clear. And I love my wine, but I wasn't thinking. So there was all this I was trying to mask. But then when I got medicated, that freak out you're talking about, I had it. But for me, I channeled it to, okay, I need to make some changes in my life pronto, because that just scared me. Mm-hmm. I got so medicated that everything, with no distractions, I just saw the rawness, which is my life. OMG. I am doing a Skype thing in a bikini with some pervert. Oh my God, what is going on with my life? And I don't think that I would have been able to make right decisions for me had I not been scared. So I think when people don't do it often and they say, see, this is why I don't like to do it, it's either A, the environment that they're in, or B, the strain maybe needs to be tweaked, or C, maybe they just need to medicate with somebody that they can talk to and share their feelings to and release, because people who don't do it often, they're keeping all that in, and that's why they're looking for an answer. I need something. And then it's a little bit too much, because now you're opening yourself and there's a lot to be said. Maybe you don't even know what it is, but it's all there ready to come out, and it's too much. Oh my gosh, it's too much. It's too much. And that's my opinion of the freak out.
Shelly, let me ask you this, because you brought up something very interesting, because I go through this on a daily basis. This is why I'm asking you the question, because I want to see what your root is, and I want to see if we can, almost connect here. You say you go through spiritual warfare.
Right.
Why and when do you go through spiritual warfare? Because I deal with it all the time, Shelly. That's why I'm asking you.
Well, for me, understanding it, and trust me, I'm not some girl that has all the answers. It took me many years to figure this out.
Shelly, I think you have all the answers.
But you know why? It's because I put my faith in God, and I do bring forth things that maybe I don't understand about myself, or that I hate about myself, or I'm just feeling hopeless about, to Him. And it takes time, but it always goes forward. And
right.
That's when I'm able to see things in life with a clearer lens. And for me, it's so interesting because I've said this on a ton of interviews, but when people always say, oh, how'd you know you're going to make it to WWE? And it's interesting because I never really had that energy about me of, watch, one day I'm going to be there. It was always like, yeah, I'm going to be there. That's my calling. That's what I'm going to be doing. So what do I need to do to get there? That was always my mind frame. And in saying that, and I got closer to it, even though I was younger and definitely in a darker place because I didn't know what the hell was going on with me, I knew and I felt like God put on my heart that, and it's so weird because whenever I'd pray about anything WWE related, I'd always say, Lord, I know that I'm going to have this because it's to glorify you after. And it was like such a weird sentence to say, and like how life panned out. Yeah, because I wasn't there that long, and look what happened. And that really helped me acquire this cult-like following, or people will tend to give what I have to say a listen because it's a unique thing. And I understood finally why that weird sentence, it's not even good grammar, I would always say, and it's because it's so true. So in saying that, once I truly embraced that the reason why I am in wrestling is to bring God's light to specifically the people in these locker rooms, because those are the people who need it the most. And I felt like it was placed on my heart that when I cater to those people, everyone else is just going to follow, like the people who are the fans that do follow me and they do say, hey, this really meant a lot, or I really resonated with it. And it's awesome. But truly my mission is for those guys and girls in that locker room. So in saying that, the more I spiritually cleaned up my life, the more I've learned and grown through trial and error, and the more outspoken I've been and sharing that light, I'm constantly under attack, whether, it's this negative energy or that one, it's constant. And there was a time, especially because I do live my life that way. So I do look at dealing with situations differently, just a different mindset. I'm not better than anyone, but because I put my focus first on God and what I need to do, because it's easy. Sometimes there's been things that happen to me in wrestling that some people would say, oh my gosh, you have more than enough right to not only feel that way, but go and tell that person blah, 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 blah. But then I think to myself, I do, but that's not what God wants for me. And so it puts me in check. So I had to re-examine myself and my intent and why I'm hurt, because that's usually why I'm mad, because someone hurt my feelings. And when I go through that journey, that's when the spiritual attacks happen. It's almost like I feel negative does not want me to achieve my shalom through these ugly situations, because that's going to bring only more love and light to these people. And there was a time I thought I was crazy for all this, and I thought people were going to think I'm crazy. But since I have gone on that path, I can't tell you, like, to have some of the biggest names in wrestling and have these conversations with me, and knowing that they receive God's love no matter what they believe in, and they understand that that's where my intent is coming from. Like, that's freaking awesome. And that's better than any WrestleMania. That's better than being on any television show. It's like wrestling was just that backdrop to align me with these souls so that I can really, when they need it the most, share that love. And like I said, there comes a responsibility. I get under attack. And recently there was a time where there was just so much BS going on that for about 3 months, I kind of lost myself a little bit. I was feeling really angry and I didn't want to be around people. I just wanted to be around my sister. And
is that the period where you blow me off? during that 3 months?
You jerk. I'll get back to that in a sec.
Okay.
But, and that's also during the time where I was this Bush League webcam model. And so, like, it was a weird time, and it made me just so, I went to a show, Vince, and I put my bags down. I looked at the girls I was in the match with, and I said, can we talk about this match so we can get this match over with? Because I just want to get out of here. I don't even want to be here. And everyone looked at me, and they were like, what? I said, yeah, I'm like, you know, and I don't like to curse, but I was just so over it. I was like, I'm tired of the shit talking. I'm tired of the backstabbing. It's all bullshit. You guys are fake and phony. So I want to have a good match. So let's just do that so then I can go back to California. And I didn't like that. And I wasn't trying to be like this badass. I was just like so fed up that I just had to just say that's like what was like, I just had to get it out. And it was crazy because I was just like, what is going on? And I realized that it's because I was under this spiritual attack, but I had to go through all of that and I think that's where people get confused. They think that when you want to seek healing and you have moments where you have healing and you're feeling good and you're going for it, they think that you're going to be good for that point on, but it's like, no, that's not how life is. It's, you always got to work for it, and you always got to go through different experiences, both good and bad. And I feel the bad or the uncomfortable is what leads to the good. And so,
Shelly, you want to hear something interesting? And I see, this is why I love talking to you, because I can't to have these conversations with anybody else. And I'm gonna tell you like what I'm dealing with, and it's been for a long time. It's been for a long time. I want to get your view of this, okay? Shelly, I became a Christian while I was in the wrestling business. And I mean, listen, you can't, people, in my opinion, people that haven't experienced it, like, you can't explain it to them. Right. I wasn't looking for God. I wasn't praying. I was perfectly happy doing everything on my own. And, you know, but I kept hitting rock bottom, kept running into the wall, when finally the time came where he literally, physically spoke to me loud and clear, and there was no turning back. So I was a Christian. I was already in the wrestling business. I became a Christian. Okay. So now I'm trying to understand everything, and I'm saying to myself, okay, what? When I became a Christian, the pitfalls of the wrestling business became magnified beyond what I ever saw before. You know, you talk about Paul and the scales falling from his eyes. Oh my God. So like, I saw this evil business, but I kept saying to myself, okay, what does God have me here for? I'm here for a reason. I believe he's got me here for a reason. So I tried to do exactly what you were talking about. I said, I am going to go to work every day, and all I want people to do is see God through me. Because by seeing God through me, slowly but surely, I hope that would start changing other people.
Right.
So that's how I carried myself once I became a Christian. However, the ugliness of the wrestling business was still there. I almost felt like the force was a very powerful force. You know, listen, I'm just going to say it. It felt like Jesus versus the devil. I mean, that's what it felt like. Okay, at that point, here's where, you got to help me, Shelly. God made it clear to me, get out of this business. You're not supposed to be here. Get out of it, okay? Shelly, I left TNA. I left a 6-figure salary. I did not have a job lined up. It was solely on the faith of God, okay? So, Shelly, I leave TNA. I start doing Christian wrestling shows. And I got to tell you, Shelly, they were the most rewarding thing I ever did in my life. I swear to you, God's hands were all over the 2 shows that I did. No question about it. Grown men, wrestlers, wrestlers, everyone in tears. It was amazing. Okay? What happened was I needed churches to partner with me. So I would have to meet with pastors and explain to them what I was doing. But at the time, they had a picture of what wrestling was in their mind that they could not get past it. And I would say, no, you got to understand. I write this. I can write it for the kingdom of God. We can bring people, and introduce them to God that you would have never reached before through wrestling. They couldn't get past the Attitude Era, right? So, Shelly, what happened is now the human side. I have a family to support. Now I'm starting to run out of money. So even though I clearly know he does not want me to go back to the wrestling business, and I'm praying, and my prayer is a lot similar to yours, Shelly. My prayer is always this simple. Whatever is your will is my way. I don't care what it is. You want me to be a garbage man? It don't matter to me. Whatever is your will is my way. Just please show me your will, right? So, Shelly, I went back to the wrestling business because I needed to make money. Well, when I went back to the wrestling business, it was the same thing. It was the same world. God showed me clearly again. And if I told you how we did it, it would blow you away. It's a long story. I'm going to privately tell you somehow. But it was like this. He told me so clearly that if I didn't get out of it a second time, it would have been the equivalent of me just spitting in his face. That's how clearly he was like, no, don't worry. And listen, I believe in God. I shouldn't worry about money. He knows what I need. He's going to take care of me, but the flesh kicks in. So the second time he says, no, get out. You're not supposed to be here. So I leave TNA a second time. Now, Shelly, here's where the hard part comes. I've been home now for 4 months, okay? I still do wrestling. 2 things. Number 1, I absolutely hate it. It's the last thing in the world I want to be talking about. I've given my faith 100%. God, you drive the car. Whatever is your will is my way. But yet here's the thing, so since I'm still doing wrestling but in a different form, I feel that's holding me back because I'm still not listening to him. He's made it clear, I don't want you doing this wrestling thing, but as a man and a guy that needs to pay bills and support his family, this is how I make my income. This is what I've done for 20 years. So it's as much as I know he doesn't want me to do it, and I don't want to be doing it, it is my form of income, but since I'm not, totally letting go, I feel that's preventing me from getting to the next level. But how do I totally let go when bills need to be paid?
Pro Wrestling's history class is now in session with Back to the Territories. Join host Jim Cornette and J.J. Dillon as they explore Mid-Atlantic wrestling.
Sitting there with his hands like this was Jim Crockett Sr.
3.5 hours of wrestling history told through rare memorabilia and exclusive footage.
Nothing topped Wahoo McDaniel and Johnny Valentine.
Featuring over an hour of lost Mid-Atlantic film footage from Jim Cornette's collection.
The kid from Minnesota, it was going to be something, Ric Flair.
Head back to Mid-Atlantic Wrestling at shootinterviews.com.